Hey YouTube. Okay, this is our fourth in our series of classic camping, early 20th century camping in hot and humid weather. Okay, we talked about hydration, we talked about clothing, we talked about our sleeping bag and the reason why we made out of those materials, and we also made a pre-filter for our water because hydration is very, very important. The other important thing that I'm going to address now is comfort at night when you sleep, because a good night's sleep, a restful night's sleep, is probably one of the most important survival skills you can come up with, regardless of whether it's the early 20th century or today. It will allow you to conserve energy. You will not be tired. What happens is you don't get enough rest one night, and then the next night you don't get enough rest, and then the next night you don't get enough, and pretty soon you're just plain tired, and you don't want to be tired. You want to be active, okay? But not so much that you elevate your core temperature, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to siesta in the middle of the day. I'm going to hike from around dawn until lunchtime. I'm going to have lunch, and I'm going to find a shady spot, and I'm going to lean up against a tree or my pack, and I'm going to sleep. I'm going to rest. I'm not going to do a dang thing except lay in the shade until about 4:30. Then I'm going to get up from there. I'm going to hike about an hour and a half. I'm going to have a dinner. I'm going to get up from there, and then I'm going to hike until dusk. Okay? Don't camp where you cook your food. Okay? A lot of people cook their food when they get to the camp. That means food scraps is laying all around. Eat about an hour away from where you're going to camp. That way, when the pigs and the foxes and the rats and the mice find your food, you won't be sleeping next to it. Okay? Now, when I get to my campsite, the important thing I need to do is to bring my body temperature down. I have been hiking in the sun, in the heat. Hiking elevates, any kind of physical activity elevates your core body temperature. That's why they call it burning calories. Okay? So I want to bring my body temperature down. That means I don't want to do a whole lot of exertion. Okay? The most I want to do is set up my tarp in a nice airy configuration, a lot of ventilation, and then I want to lay on the ground, lay down and go to sleep. Now, normally for this, I would use a 4-foot by 7-foot oilcloth tarp, make a bed of browse, put that tarp on top of that, and sleep on it. But that means I have to run around, gather browse, and then lay that down and hope that the browse does the job. Okay? But it's still activity I don't need to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a sleeping pad where I don't have to gather browse to have a comfortable sleeping surface. I'm also going to make it waterproof. The oilcloth is waterproof, and the ground around here, most of the Gulf Coast, is a mixture called gumbo, okay, where it's some organic material, a whole lot of clay, some sand, and other dirt. Okay, this material, this gumbo, reaches a saturation level very quickly. It gets very saturated, and it holds on to that moisture, particularly if it's covered with a bed of dead leaves. Okay, that's why it floods so much down here. The earth gets saturated very quickly, and then the water runs off. But again, the forest holds on to that. So the ground is going to be damp whether it's rained recently or not. So I'm going to make a waterproof mattress that is both has some comfort level in it and is waterproof. And I'm going to use a method called making enameled cloth. This is a 19th century, early 20th century method. It's not as expensive as oilcloth. A lot of people make their own oilcloth. You don't need to go to all of that falderall doing it. You don't need to go to the expense of buying oilcloth. Okay, it's a method that's been used since before the Civil War. In the 1930s, they called it oilcloth, and they made tablecloths out of it. Let's see if I can't find a picture of a 1930s tablecloth. When I was a young kid in the 1950s, I had my grandparents and some of my aunts and uncles, my mother's aunts and uncles, had these oilcloth tablecloths on the tables, and some of them tacked to the counters. We're going to make that. Okay, I'm going to tell you how to make it, because a lot of people think all you need to do is paint the cloth, and you don't. Let's listen to the old man tell us how to start this project.
Okay, so here's what I did. I took my canvas and I cut it 8 feet long, and then I pinned this piece of 1x2 at each end to kind of give me a little bit of weight on each end and pull this tight. Set it out overnight, let it get soaked with dew. Now we're going to paint it, and we're going to paint it first off with this stuff right here. We'll go back into the cabin and talk about this. When that dries, I'll set it up overnight to finish curing, and then I'll bring it back out here tomorrow morning, and I will paint it with a nice gloss brown oil-based enamel. We'll talk about this in the cabin too, but right now let me get this painted with the gesso. Could be gesso.
Okay, that stuff gesso could be gesso, but I don't guess so. I think it's gesso. That is it's an acrylic material. The modern stuff that I buy is an acrylic material. It doesn't matter as far as authenticity is concerned, because all we're looking for is something that performs the function. I'm using a 5-ounce canvas that I got from Joann's. Hobby Lobby. I buy it 10 yards at a time. It goes on sale occasionally, and I buy it 10 yards at a time. Anyway, you need to put that stuff down just like you would if you were putting primer on metal. What it does is it soaks into the fiber just like rain does. Okay, reason why canvas is waterproof is that moisture falls on it, the fibers expand and close the spaces in between, and as long as you don't touch the inside of the canvas, it won't leak, it won't drip through. Well, what this gesso does is the same thing, but it leaves all sorts of particulate matter behind, and it fills in those gaps, and then you double up on it by painting it with an oil-based enamel. Okay, let's take a look at that, and then I'll show you something. Okay, so here we are. Now, this is one of the end pieces. Okay, You may have seen me, the cloth was a little bit too long and hung over the end of the table. So I got down there and I painted that. But here you can see the enamel cloth painted over the gesso. But if we go to the inside here, I hope you can see that. You see, you can tell right here, you can see the black paint. But just above it, it's nice and white, as if the cloth was brand spanking new. Okay, well what that is this is the gesso, and down here it's just plain paint. Okay, now this cloth is 100% waterproof. Okay, I cut it to length. I went as far as I could and cut it, and then I put my bed ticking on top of it, pinned it together, and sewed it on 3 sides. Okay, just like we did with the other mattress. A little bit of difference is in that the other mattress that we did, we folded it lengthwise and sewed down one side in the end. Okay, and then we pulled it inside out, we made a bag, and then we tufted it. Okay, let me show you what I did with this. Okay, so here we are. This is completely sewed. It's about 36 inches wide and I think right around 7 feet long. This is the bed ticking side. Bed ticking is a great fabric. It's very sturdy. It resists tearing. It is somewhat water resistant, although not a whole lot water resistant. The other side, this stuff is real stiff. That is the enameled cloth side. Isn't that beautiful? It's going to look especially nice once we get the tufting done. Now, what I'm going to do now, if you go back and look at the other mattress video that we did, I filled it full of my insulated material and I beat it with a stick and I stomped on it with my feet while I was in my jammies until that insulation got spread out. And then I sewed it shut. I clamped it at one end. Right now it's still open. I clamped it at one end and got it all laid out. And then I tufted it. Okay, what we did before with the tufting is I took about a foot of yarn, put it in a BFN, stuck it through the mattress, pulled it out a little bit, then turned around and stuck it back up, put some yarn underneath that, pulled it tight, and put some more yarn underneath that and tied it good, and that brought the two sides together enough to hold the insulation in place. If I did that with this mattress that has a side that is designed to lay down on the damp ground, that yarn, that cotton yarn, is going to soak up moisture from the ground and it's going to get into the insulation, and then the insulation is going to get moldy. Okay, particularly in this environment, let alone getting smelling funky because of the sweat it's going to get. It's also going to get moldy, and that can be dangerous to your health. What we're going to use is a method called button tufting, and let me just show you what this looks like. Let me see. There it is. Isn't that nice? That's a nice looking button. We're going to have about, I think, 27 of these, or maybe 18. I'll have to do my math again. And we're going to use cotton, as you were. We're going to be using waxed thread to do this. Now that way, I don't have anything laying on the ground that is going to suck up moisture. These are a wooden button. I still like them. A wooden button and waxed thread. Now, after I've got this thing, let me just show you what it's going to look like here. In my Rachel Ray moment. Can you see what that's going to look like? It's going to have a nice color contrast, I think. Uh, anyway, once I get this filled and I start the tufting, I'll show you that process.
Okay, well here we go. I've got most of this done now. This is the stick I use to feed it with. Got my carpentry tools that I use as my sewing tools. Now what I did on this was I took a 8-foot piece of 1x1 and I made several little tick marks on it that correspond to the spacing I wanted on these pins. Okay, I get this Sailmaker's wrist ducus. Put about a foot of wax cloth through the eyes of the, I don't know if you can see that, the button. Thread that button through the BFN. Don't pull it tight, leave a little bit of it hanging out, and then come over here and make sure the tick marks are lined up. And push it through and then lift straight up. Okay, now hopefully that means that you're not going to get anything bunched up underneath. I'm going to go a little bit out of sequence here and push this through, pull it through, and I hope you can see this. But now the wax thread has come through on the other end, and I take my little bitty bunched up tufts like I did for the first mattress. Set that in there. I should leave the clasp on. That'll hold it together until I get it tied. Lay that in there. Get it about centered. Tie a knot. Tie it good and tight. Pull it in. Just pull that right in. Take that off and tie another knot. Trim the thread, and then cut all the little loops on the tufts. Do that 2 more times and I'm done. Okay, I would have done this outside, but we got a lot of rain, ground is wet, and I don't want to be walking around on my knees in it. What I've done here is I've taken 2 tables, 2.5 feet wide by 6 feet long, makes 1 table 5 feet wide by 6 feet long. I've taken my 8-foot by 8-foot 10 Smith's oilskin tarp, laid it out, centered on the table, and then I laid my sleeping bag on top of it, centered in it. So there's an even amount of space here and on either side. Now, what I'll do is I'll take my oilcloth sleeping pad, my enameled cloth sleeping pad, and I will lay it on top of that. Like so. Get it centered. Fold the sides over. And then fold the ends.
I've got is a nice waterproof package. And let's just see how small of a roll we can make with this little trekking mattress we made. I know that the 3-inch thick mattress, I don't know what my neighbors are doing outside, but it's making boom noises. There we go. That is not an unmanageable pack by early 20th century standards. And what I will do is it will go inside the pack I made last year using a sea bag. I will post a link to the video if you want to make this pack. But it'll slide in there. Let me see. Just so that you'll take my word for it. Neighbors got the fireworks early. Okay, so there it is. It'll stand proud of my head a little bit, but I've got an idea. Let's go sit down in the cabin and talk about it. Okay, there you have it. We have a trekking mattress as opposed to the cot mattress that we made a couple weeks ago, and it is put together in a complete sleep and shelter system. My sleeping system and my shelter is all wrapped up in one package. Now, I originally had intended on putting that in that pack, and I might do that for the near term. However, I saw something in my scraps, the scraps that I got from this project. The way I cut my canvas, I folded it lengthwise halfway and then cut it. I cut it 18 inches wide while it was folded. And when I unfolded, it was 36 inches wide. But what that left me with was 2 rolls about 4 or 5 inches wide, about 8 feet long. I got 16 feet of this stuff. I know it looks like bandage, but it's not. What this is great for is making straps, pack straps in particular, because of the width. And I got to thinking, I could make another pack for this. This system is tailor-made for something that appears in Warren Miller's Sportsman's Workshop. Seeing as how this playlist is called the Sportsman's Workshop in honor of Warren Miller, I think I shall attempt, get a better picture of it here. Warren Miller's Army Style Pack. You see it right here? I'll try to put a better picture up on the screen. Warren Miller's pack here is patterned after the model 1910 infantry pack, which at the time was a revolution. And this system I've got is tailor-made for this. I got a couple of tweaks, a couple of things I got to look at, but I think we're going to make a pack at some time in the very near future. We're also going to make a sleeping bag. I'll try to get you some video shots of the sleeping bag I've got. I found it while I was digging through my stuff. It is an original bag from around the First World War, just prior to the First World War. Doesn't require any zippers, doesn't require any buttonholes, and is definitely period authentic. And I think we'll make a reproduction of that in the future. In the meantime, I have all the stuff I need to answer James Bender's Haversack Loadout Challenge. And as soon as I push the button on this to shut this off, I'm going to start shooting that. Now, in a few seconds, at the end of this video, the old man's going to walk down the trail with his dog, and two links are going to show up. One is going to be to that pack I made that we saw briefly there in the video, and the other one's going to be to the cot mattress, just in case you haven't seen that one yet. That'll fill in some of the blanks of what I left in this little project. Okay, so we'll see you down the trail. Click on one of those videos.